Oh wait, I closed the browser. There we go. Wow, where's the Brave audio? There we go. We're gonna learn about racism today. Well, race. Specifically District 9 and the story of race by the feral historian, which I'm told my chatters quite like this guy. Apparently he's pretty good. So, okay, it is on normal speed. Awesome. You know, District 9 was a movie that I've seen at least like 3 or 4 times now. It doesn't get old. It really is a pretty awesome movie. I 10 out of 10 recommend anyone who hasn't seen it, excuse me, to go watch the movie. It really is worth your time.
War of the Worlds is usually thought of as the first in the alien invasion genre, though Two Planets was published the same year and The Germ Growers preceded both by a few years, all of which are tied in with the invasion literature around that time, particularly in Britain about fictional wars with France or Germany rather than extraterrestrials. But related to the alien invasion idea is a more subtle alternative. The alien incursion, the idea of an extraterrestrial population assimilating, infiltrating, or supplanting us. Alien Nation is a great example of the analogy for immigration version of this, with hundreds of thousands of alien laborers falling out of the sky and settling in Los Angeles. There are similar themes in some of the Planet of the Apes films, but they'll get their own video.
Wait, this is Planet of the Apes? I thought the movies only came out in like the mid-2000s. I didn't realize it was like an 80s version of it. The more you know.
We can even count Superman here, with the alien child Kal-El blending into his adopted culture, projecting the Clark Kent persona as an act of deliberate outward assimilation while still remaining forever something else. But District 9 really grabs onto several threads and tangles them up in some interesting ways. So we begin with a documentary-style backstory. An alien spacecraft arrives, takes up position over Johannesburg, and just sits there.
It's Johannesburg, Mensa. Johannesburg.
For months. All attempts at contact fail, so the South...
1967? For OG Planet of the Apes? What? That's even earlier than I expected. Mind blown.
The African government, and really the international community, does what anyone would eventually do with a mysterious box of potential goodies left on the porch. Cut it open and see what's inside. And what they find is filth and squalor. A million malnourished, disgusting bug people living in shit. There's echoes here of books like The Camp of the Saints and Fugue for a Darkening Island, novels from the 1970s that depict swarms of third world immigrants packed into freighters, pouring into France and the UK, respectively. District 9 starts with that same setup, only the third worlders are off-worlders, and their arrival...
The third worlders are off-worlders. I honestly was wondering if he's going to ever make that pun, but he actually did. He actually did. Nice.
In apartheid South Africa, a country itself ruled by a minority population, adds more layers to it. One of the layers being that these aliens, which for convenience I'll refer to by the film's racial slur for them, prawns.
I mean, you can't say they don't look like that.
That's true, you like say. They look just like prawns.
That's what they look like, right? They look like prawns.
The prawns don't have much choice in being there, it seems. Certainly not once they're taken off the ship down to the surface and concentrated into a shantytown. They're not human-looking enough to assimilate into our culture. They didn't come to conquer or colonize. They're just here. District 9 shows us an immigration story, but one where the newly arrived population isn't just foreign, but alien. Peaceful coexistence is possible, but assimilation is not. At least, not in a direction favoring the human population already there. Meet Hicks, government functionary and nepotism beneficiary.
I had to put aside the fact that my daughter was married to Vickers.
Nepotism.
That didn't factor in my decision to promote her.
The government has decided that the prawn ghetto is too close to where people live and is going to relocate them to new facilities further away.
Yeah,
but the international community isn't going to just round them up and ship them off to a big concentration camp. They have to think about the optics, and that sort of thing looks bad.
We've built a nice new facility where the prawn can go.
Wait, what? No non-human loitering. Oh, so... Wait, hold on. That's double negative. Hold on, my brain needs to comprehend this. So it's no alien loitering, right? So, does that mean the humans can loiter here? That's not very fair now, is it?
He can be comfortable, he can stay there. The people of Johannesburg and of South Africa are going to live happily and safely knowing that that prawn is very far away.
The relocation is going to be voluntary-ish.
You just put your scroll there. Okay, all right, Thomas. Hold it.
Yikes.
We've got the scroll there because as he hit it, that's what I was saying. It counts as a scroll.
Also, token bribes. For example, the prawn's favorite foods.
Oh, that's a pity because you know this. Well, this is a nice cat food, you know. But of course, it's not your house, eh? So we'll.
I wonder if I could do the same thing to Americans with like a McDonald's cheeseburger and a can of soda. Would that work, guys? Or would I need something more advanced? You know, maybe like a hot dog or something deep fried and covered in chocolate. Probably. The sign here, sir. Hum yum 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 yum. Hum 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 yum yum.
We'll just have to go and give it to someone else. We need you to sign there. Okay, there it is. Now you can take that. Okay, all right. Thomas, wait. Take it easy, my friend.
This bit is even funnier now than it was at the time.
Free fries when you get vaccinated?
Wow. Almost picture perfect political commentary right here. Sign the sheet, goy. Take the jab, goy, and we will give you the the soy slop.
I got vaccinated. You're saying I could get this? These delicious fries?
But the point here is that Vicus isn't a hero. He's not a villain either. He's too spineless for that. He's just some guy with a clipboard making sure the paperwork is in order before relocating an entire undesirable population. But
just the
he's in
middleman.
for a surprise.
But I don't trust it. You know, I don't trust anything that.
And this, kids, is why you don't sniff Galaxy gas in high school.
You're right, Rick. Because you're right.
Yeah, he actually opened up a can of VTuber bathwater. That's what happened.
He starts to transform into one of them. Now, there are multiple layers to this. The obvious one, the transformation into the marginalized group. Clearly, his perception of the world changes as he shifts from favored middle management of the ruling group to part of the underclass. There are plenty of long essays on that are already out there. It's boilerplate progressivism at this point. More interesting is his commodification. The alien technology is somehow biologically coded to them. It's all just inert metal for humans. But when they discover that Vicus is able to operate that technology, he ceases to be treated as a man and instead is seen as property.
He became
He's
the
a
most
weapon.
valuable business artifact on Earth. But his real value was that he could operate alien weaponry.
But this isn't the part that most grabs my attention either. I'll leave the full dive into the Marxist interpretation of that to ideologues who will do it in complete earnest with a straight face. What I find more interesting about it is how it frames the story in terms of a simple race allegory, but then contradicts that race-based worldview at every turn, revealing how artificial the whole concept is if we peel back the layers.
Yes.
The intro
that is
sequence
true.
of the film has a few clips of what locals think about the prawns living nearby.
They're spending so much money to keep them here when they could be spending it on other things, but hasn't at least
Yeah, we should actually we should just gas them all, and then we can use the money on infrastructure for the humans. That's probably what that person's thinking. Okay, maybe not to that extent, but you know, it does beg the question. You know, I think this is such a really excellent hypothetical of, you know, what is the morally correct decision, or even just, you know, not even morally, just like what is the rational decision to do if you have like 1 or 2 million illegal aliens of whatever type, whether it's third world, outer world. Like, what are you supposed to do in that situation? Like, do you house them? Do you kill them? Do you enslave them? Do you send them off to another country? I think it's just such a very interesting question. I think the film doesn't really explore that too much, because it only really gives us one aspect of what the South African government decides to do, which is basically just keep them all in a tiny pen. But I'd like to see like what the other nations or what other opinions there would have been in this universe, quote unquote, on what would be the appropriate response to this situation that South Africa is in this fictional universe. Like, can you imagine they land? Okay, maybe America's probably the worst example to use, because I know if that UFO lands in America, they're going to be like, hell yeah, this is America. They're going to pull out the, you know, the RPGs, the tanks, you know, the F-35s, and it's just going to blow up, okay, you know. Maybe if it landed in Germany, okay, they'd probably just welcome the aliens in, you know, like they always do. Maybe if it landed in China, what would the Chinese do? It certainly wouldn't land in India. I mean, that would be the one place that the ship would avoid. Maybe if it landed somewhere cool like Ghana or Mexico, what would those governments do about the whole situation? That's kind of what my thought process is. That's something I'd be very interested to find out. Hey, Curse, welcome on in. We're busy discussing racism. Sorry, not racism, race. But specifically the hypothetical that District 9 places, the universe in where, what do you do if you got 1 million or 2 million illegal aliens that pop out of nowhere and just hover above your city? What are you supposed to do in that situation, etc., and all the, indicatives that come after that.
They're keeping them separate from us.
It's been said that they were actually asked about Nigerian immigrants. Whether or not that's actually the case, the movie struck a nerve.
You would have believed, I would have believed you're talking about racism. My bad.
The Nigerian government actually banned it over its depiction of...
Wait, racist in Discord? When was I racist? I was never racist in Discord. What are you guys talking about? I made one Polish joke and it was on Twitter and some mod posted the link. I have never been racist in Discord. I love people of all types. We have a very diverse Discord that I'm very proud of. Okay, we all get along. The humor channel tag. The humor channel tag. What did I post on the humor channel? Look at the flag in my name? You don't have a flag in your name. There's literally no flag in your name. I'm confused. I probably did a big oopsie, but there's like no flag. Underworld Fox is an equal opportunity hater. True. It only appears on phone? Oh, that explains. I'm sorry, okay? I remember you requesting Finnish music. I saw a really cool Finnish meme that a Finnish friend sent me. I didn't understand it. I was hoping maybe you understood Finnish culture so you could explain the meme to me. On PC it appears as EE. Okay, that explains. I'm sorry, okay? That was unintentional racism. Forgive me, guys.
Of a Nigerian gang operating in the prawn ghetto with enterprises like reselling cat food at extortionate markups, trading for alien weapons that notably they can't even use,
okay, I
and selling prawn body parts for consumption in order to absorb their power.
You must eat them.
You will eat the bugs, live in the pod, own nothing, and be happy. Maybe this part of the script was written by the World Economic Forum, just saying. Sounds awfully suspicious.
In their power, we live in you.
There's also a little bit of cannibalism. Much ink was spilled over its insensitive treatment of an entire nation, and I get why Nigerian people got a bit cross about it.
Nigerians in shambles.
But also, maybe there's a little thou doth protest too much about it at work. I first took it not as an attack on Nigerians in general, but rather on drug cartels, gun runners, and cannibal witch doctors that just happened to be Nigerian in this story because it was set in South Africa. And...
I mean, that's kind of how I interpreted it as well. Like, you could probably expect the same behavior from anyone else of another nationality.
The immigration from Nigeria was an issue. As the film's director Neil Blomkamp explains, the Nigerian thing is there because I wanted to take as many cues from South Africa as I could. I wanted South Africa to be the inspiration. If I try to keep South Africa as true to South Africa as I could, then unfortunately a massive part of the crime that happens in Johannesburg is by Nigerians there. It's just the way it is. I wanted to have a crime group and thought the most honest refraction of a crime group would be Nigerians for one.
Wow, this guy's racism is far more evolved than mine. I need to take notes, guys. He understands per capita. We need to start studying the mind of Neil Blomkamp. Truly, he is a mastermind when it comes to these sorts of topics.
And then secondly, the Muti, the African witch doctor, is also a huge part of Africa in many African countries.
Which is true, by the way. I live in Africa. I know all about it. They will literally kidnap albino children and cut them up for supposedly traditional medicine, okay? I know all about this stuff. This stuff happens.
So I wanted to incorporate that as well.
Why do you think I never go outside? Because I'm as white as a wallpaper. I just don't do it. You never know.
At the time I was writing the movie, there was all these tribal witch doctor attacks on albinos. Because
oh, he says it right here, the albinos. Okay. Aware, yeah. Okay, I didn't actually see it down below there, but yes, what he's talking about is actually factual. I know people who've had to flee from that situation, okay? It's true.
Albino flesh were worth more than normal humans. That was the analogy to a different group or a different race with their traditional medicine or traditional muti, even cannibalism in some instances. I incorporated aliens into that. I bring this up because, to American eyes, Nigerians and black South Africans are generally seen as the same race. We have a social construct of race derived from broad ethnicity and lump all Africans together as black despite significant tribal and cultural differences. Africa is really big, but not big enough, it seems, to escape the blanket of this idea of race. And historically, we can see this modern idea of race being constructed through legal documents and language, really starting with Bacon's Rebellion in 1676, when many in the Virginia colony, including white indentured servants, black slaves, and free Negroes, all fought together against the colonial governor.
Oh, that's interesting.
It wasn't some idealistic multicultural thing. The rebels wanted to drive the native tribes out and take their land to homestead. But this class consciousness, to use an anachronistic term, was seen as a problem. And so divisions were nurtured and reinforced. The terms black and white become common in legal documents as distinctions of ethnically identified social status, creating big catch-all categories that divide people.
Which, by the way, is something that the South African government does on a pretty big scale. There's like 140, I think from the last time we saw a video that discussed them, there's like 140 different laws that use these categorizations of race to specifically economically screw over certain groups of people. If you know, you know.
But with District 9, Vicus is transracial. He's not doing the white savior thing, and he's not wearing prawn face. He's actually...
Prawn face. Oh, man. That caught me off guard. The prawn face. Oh, man. You know what? I'm actually glad this movie was made the year it was. Can you imagine if this was made in 2025 and we got Morning Glory Prawn Milking Farm starring Vicus, written by some crazed Karen author? Ooh, that would be diabolical.
Transforming physically into an example of a different group, though still culturally a white man from South Africa. And now that he's essentially become property, he needs a place to hide and he needs allies. The only place to find either is in District 9 with the prawns. Of course, there's a mass media angle here too, not only in plastering his face on every screen, but also planting bogus stories to discredit him in the eyes of the public.
Vicus van der Merwe was recently apprehended after prolonged sexual activity with aliens.
Yeah, if this was, you know what, I'm not even going to make the joke. I was going to make a certain anime joke about a certain VTuber, but I won't even go there. It's too mean, it's too mean.
In District 9.
Going for that visceral disgust to taint anything he might reveal about illegal activities of the government. You can't trust that Vicus guy. He's a filthy lying prawn fucker. How else would he end up like that? Later on, the film condenses down into more of a straight-up sci-fi action story. Gunfights with mechs, exploding vehicles, exploding people, all that cool stuff. And through it all, Vicus goes from being completely self-interested, just trying to get a cure so he can be human again, to an act of self-sacrifice to help his prawn friend and his little kid.
Thank you, boy, and go home.
Oh, by the way, if you think about it, this film, I think, is a very good contrast to the film's Avatar. I think, I forgot who even directed that, but you know the Avatars, you know, the blue monkey people. So both of them essentially feature a main character who is essentially a transracial character who becomes the other race, even though culturally he is basically just this random white guy, and he learns... Well, he essentially becomes someone of another race, blah blah blah. He had a fish cake and finds allies and relations in that other race. And of course, has conflicts with the race that he was originally from. So there's a very basic framework that both these movies operate on that is quite similar in a number of instances. But I feel like this movie executes that concept much better than Avatar does. like just delving into the theme. I think it's just done with a lot. It is just done better. It does, yeah, it does. Like with Avatar, he basically has a blue man. Man becomes blue man to clap blue cheeks, and that's pretty much the only reason why he sides, with the Na'vi. He's just a gooner. Okay, that's the whole story. It's pretty flat, but this one has a lot more depth and substance to it because you have basically not an outsider to the conflicts between the prawns and the humans, but someone who is a sort of middleman slash bystander in the whole thing. He's just doing his job, getting the paperwork filed in. He probably doesn't particularly hate them or want to kill them. He just wants to, do his job or whatever and just not be around them. But when he gets transformed into a prawn, it's nothing he does by choice because he wants to clap prawn cheeks, as the government advertised would have the populace believe. Right, it's something that happens on pure chance. And you see a lot of character growth and perspective shift that happened with the character of Vicus, which you just don't really get from the main character of the Avatar movie. It's just this one just has a lot more substance to it, if I could use that word, which I feel like the concept is just executed much better here.
You have to make it. Don't make me go through all of this and not make it. You understand?
This little gamer kid taking on the gangsters with a drone is
like in the first example, it's just he wants to clap blue cheeks, and that's why Knife fights with a Na'vi. This guy had an entire change of character on why he would then defend his ally, and essentially, sacrifice his own self-interest for someone else who's not even his own species. Well, who's becoming his species, anyways. Avatar's visual spectrum, yes, it's all style and absolutely no substance. It's 3 hours of a tech demo, whereas this one, the graphics are okay, but the story is what really grips you in. The concept, I think, is executed very well.
It's even more interesting in retrospect. I like that little murder roach. Little dude's one of the exceptions. Almost every character in this thing is foul in some way. The only two that really seem like decent people in this thing are the wife, mostly because she doesn't do anything vile, and his assistant, who ends up in prison for revealing the brutal experiments that were being done on prawns. Both are such small roles that I can't remember either of the characters' names. Even the prawn identified as Christopher, the one that works with Vicus towards common goals.
Bro, can this dog please shut up? Shush! Donkey.
Bails on his people and absconds with a ship. And Vicus, now fully transformed, lives among them. It's all rather ominous at the end.
We don't know if he was simply escaping, whether he will effect a rescue plan.
They're talking about the prawn here.
As the so-called Free Press says, whether or not he'll come back and declare war on us.
Between that possibility, the existence of a compound that transforms humans into prawns, or just the growing population that can never be fully assimilated nor sent back, there's again echoes of Camp of the Saints and Fugue for a Darkening Island, foreshadowing something horrific, whether open war, an inexorable population replacement, or a solution of another sort.
One might even say a final one.
But also, just maybe, a possibility of all these different tribes, let's say, to get away from the idea of race, all these tribes sharing the same general space. In the case of this story, the black South Africans, the white South Africans, the Nigerians, and the prawns, each a large but distinct cultural group. And if we try to map them over categories of black and white, it ends up in nonsense. And this is important to keep in mind when looking at contemporary politics and recent history. All right, let's talk about Rhodesia. It's usually
remember Rhodesia, chat. Back in the chat for Rhodesia.
Framed in terms of a black majority fighting against a ruling white minority for fair representation. One man, one vote, as was often said. It's also sometimes framed in terms of a Moscow-backed communist insurgency against a colonial government. And while there's some truth to both of these interpretations, neither of them really captures the reality. It makes much more sense to think of it in terms of tribes or cultural groups vying for dominance. The principal black nationalist groups, the Zimbabwe African People's Union and the Zimbabwe African National Union, were primarily tribal cluster groups. Zanu was mostly Shona, while Zapu was mostly Ndebele. There are numerous divisions within both groups, of course, but the Shona collectively make up a significant majority of the total population and the largest of the nationalist groups.
I actually didn't know this about Zimbabwe. Or at least, in terms of the political parties. That's new to me.
Robert Mugabe was Shona, and the country has been ruled by that tribal majority ever since his party, or rather his tribal cluster, took power.
And how did that work out for them? I heard $1 is like 80 trillion Zimbabwe dollars now.
That has determined which cultural traditions the schools teach and which are suppressed, how land is redistributed, how power is allocated. Rhodesia, dominated by the Anglo group, was replaced by Zimbabwe, dominated by the Shona tribal group. This is definitely the Cliff's Notes version of what happened there. In a tribal society, one man, one vote translates to the biggest tribe makes the rules, and only the big tribes want it. The modern Western liberal idea of the individual participating in pluralistic government doesn't translate to a society based on hierarchies of family and tribal affiliations, and trying to impose it on them is one of the most paternalistic, colonialist things you can do to them. The result was
democracy was a mistake categorically, if you ask me.
Wasn't transforming colonial rule Rhodesia into democratic Zimbabwe, but rather the replacement of one ruling tribe with another. Whatever else anyone chooses to map onto it, whether race or ideology, that collective group identity, that tribalism, is the core of it. But why am I talking about Rhodesia in a District 9 video? At least South Africa would be applicable, right? Well, I'm deliberately shifting away from South Africa for this reason. If we're going to treat the prawns as an allegory for real-world racism, who are they? Who are they the closest stand-in for?
I think this is actually a good question. Like, not even I thought about this. Like, sure, you can look at this and be like, yeah, okay, this is an allegory for race. These are people of a, completely different body type, skin color, eye color to the human races. And if they are an allegory, which I think it's very clear that it is, who do they best represent? And I think the better question after that is, well, what does it now imply once you've discovered who they are allegories for? Or are they even allegories for anyone at all? Who knows?
We could compare them to the native black population in that they're poor, they're treated as inferior, they're shoved aside as inconvenient and unwanted. But we could also compare them to the white population. They're relatively recent arrivals. They're a minority. The international community is actively working to contain and undermine them. Or perhaps they're most analogous to Angolans, Zambians, etc. that went to Rhodesia or South Africa for work opportunities. Despite their second-class status in those countries, it was still a step up from where they were. Trying to frame it in terms of racial motivations leads to asking the wrong questions. Why would someone move to South Africa to be oppressed? Well, obviously they went there in spite of apartheid, not because of it. And we can look at, for example, the Camp of the Saints as a horrendously racist story about dirty foreigners ruining a nice white country, or we can tie it to replacement theory as a paranoid fantasy of the far right, yet War of the Worlds is an insightful commentary on colonialism, and District 9 is a critique of racism. Or just racist if you're a Nigerian. But they're all stories built on the same core idea.
I actually haven't seen this movie. Is it any good? Maybe I should watch it.
A bunch of people come uninvited from somewhere else and conflict ensues to the detriment of everyone. Race is a framing device that can be used to manipulate the audience. Group A are oppressed and need help. Group B is mean and selfish. Apportion your sympathies accordingly. Consider, District 9 is War of the Worlds as told through the eyes of an anti-racist activist. I know, the prawns aren't trying to conquer the earth. What I'm saying is that if we retold War of the Worlds, but from the perspective of the Martians desperately trying to survive, fleeing their dying planet and hoping to find a new life on our thriving world with so much to offer, think of the little Martian children and all that.
Shoot them down, that's what I say.
It would look a lot like District 9. Race is a narrative, a story, one told to enhance divisions and often animosity. And insofar as the idea of race has been equated with ethnicity and sets of cultural expectations, everybody is racist. At least
You heard it here first, chat. Everybody's racist. That's you. That's me. That's even the non-racist. They're racist too. I'm sorry. It's over. The era of racism has arrived. Shrek finally won. He read from the N-word compilation.
At least a little bit. People generally feel most comfortable around others they perceive as being like themselves. And this idea of race has become so woven into our perceptions that we don't think about it being a deliberately constructed thing. It becomes an integral part of the like me or not.
Come to the EU, you will see real racism. Okay. Do you guys have competitive racism as a sport there in the EU? I'm curious.
Not like me perception. By design on some level. Or put another way, the prawns are a dirty, violence-prone bunch of disgusting bug people. Just look at them. But Christopher is a guy we can relate to because we see him as an individual, not an instance representative of a group's worst traits taken as an inherent quality. And who is Vicus at the end of this? The guy that grew up in Johannesburg? A prawn? Well, now we've just stumbled into intersectionality and the progressive idea of whiteness and all that, haven't we? Shit. I'm going to need a bottle of scotch and a Newspeak dictionary if we're going to dive into this.
Wait, does he dive into it? I hope he does.
Just leave it that Vicus is a case of a man becoming a prawn and a prawn that thinks like a man, leaving him as neither. The idea that race isn't entirely real is something for everyone to consider, and at the same time, there can be real conflicts between tribes or cultural blocks, whatever term you want to use. Sometimes irreconcilable conflicts that one way or another end up having to be fought out. It's just important not to conflate those ideas because they are often radically different things and can lead to acting against your own self-interest if you interpret them incorrectly. Or to put it in a personal context, most of my closest friends have been white men. Most of my bitterest enemies, also white men. And I learned long ago that I have a lot more in common with black small business owners and gig workers in the city than with white coastal academics, despite sometimes being mistaken for the latter.
Interesting. All right, boys.
The bones are flying over today, so I don't know if they're on their way to Venezuela or what.
Give him a like, give him a like. Awesome video. Do check it out. Give him a like, give him a subscribe, and Goonpocalypse. Oh, we're not going to watch that. No. Goon. Why is 60% of my recommendations Goon and the other like 30% is memes? What have you guys done to my timeline here? What have you done to my recommendations? I blame you guys, seriously. Should recommend more of his stuff. Yeah, I like this. Look at this guy. He's pretty good. It's the way he breaks down his ideas. It's just really nice. Watch the Goon. No, we're not watching the Goon. We're not watching the Goon.